Welcome to the Morning English Podcast. Listen, learn, and speak English daily.
If you break your arm, an X-ray shows the exact jagged line, right?
Right, it's right there in black and white.
Exactly. The doctor points to it and says, "There's the problem." But when your brain just completely freezes while you're trying to speak a new language,
Oh, that sudden overwhelming panic.
yes, there is no X-ray for that. You know the words, but your mouth just simply stops working.
It's terrifying, honestly. The cognitive landscape of a panicking brain is just so muddy.
Yeah.
You can't point to a scan and say, right there, that's where your confidence evaporated.
I wish you could. It would make things so much easier.
It really would.
Yeah.
But for decades, language education just, pretended that panic didn't exist.
Like it was just a math equation to be solved.
Exactly. Completely ignoring the fact that human communication is a deeply emotional, really high-stakes physical act.
Well, welcome to the Deep Dive. We are so thrilled you're listening today, sitting out here with us on this really beautiful, peaceful morning.
It really is gorgeous out today.
It is. And if you've ever found yourself staring blankly at a native speaker, just sweating through your shirt while desperately trying to remember how to conjugate a verb, this one is for you.
Absolutely.
We have a stack of excerpts today from a beginner's language guide, and it's titled Mastering Simple English, Talking About Your Daily Routine.
Which sounds so basic at first.
It does. At first glance, you might look at this and think, it's just a bland list of vocabulary about eating toast and catching the bus.
Right.
But our mission today is to completely deconstruct this text.
Because we're going to look way past the vocabulary here.
Yeah, we're digging deep.
Mastering the most mundane topic imaginable, the daily routine, is actually a linguistic superpower.
A superpower! I love that.
It really is. This text is essentially a masterclass in cognitive scaffolding. It is designed, from the very first syllable, to dismantle the immense emotional barriers that prevent you from communicating.
So it's not just about grammar at all.
Not at all. It proves that true fluency doesn't start with memorizing complex syntax trees. It starts with simply being able to say, "I wash my face," without your nervous system completely hijacking your brain.
I want to jump right into the very first page of this guide because it does something I have honestly never seen a traditional textbook do.
Yeah, it's quite unique.
It doesn't start with hello or the cat is on the table.
All right, the classic useless phrases.
Exactly. It completely ignores vocabulary for a moment and just looks the reader right in the eye. The source text literally opens with these questions. It says, do you sometimes feel shy when someone asks, what do you do every day? Do you stop and think, how do I answer in English?
It's performing a psychological intervention before it even attempts to teach a single word.
It really is, and it goes on to describe that intensely frustrating phenomenon we've all felt. It says, maybe you know the words, but the sentence does not come out. Maybe you feel nervous. And then it delivers this incredibly validating line. It says, this is very normal. Many people feel this way. You are not alone.
Wow.
Right? It just stops the lesson to tell the learner that their fear is an expected part of the process.
And there is a vital neurobiological reason the author is doing this right out of the gate.
Okay, break that down for me.
So, in the field of applied linguistics, there's this concept known as the affective filter.
The affective filter.
Right? Think of it as an invisible psychological wall.
Okay.
When a learner is anxious or stressed or terrified of looking foolish in front of a fluent speaker,
Yeah.
this affective filter just shoots right up.
So when I'm trying to order a coffee in a foreign country and the barista is just staring at me impatiently, tapping their foot.
That wall is what's blocking your brain. Yes.
Oh.
That is the affective filter in full effect. From a neuroscientific perspective, you are experiencing a mild amygdala hijack.
Amygdala hijack. That sounds intense.
It is. Your brain perceives a social threat, the fear of judgment or, being ostracized. So it releases cortisol.
The stress hormone.
Exactly. And that stress hormone literally blocks your access to the declarative memory centers in your brain.
Wait, literally?
Literally. You could have studied flashcards for 6 straight hours the night before.
I've been there.
We all have. But when the affective filter is up, the input just bounces off and the output is trapped. Your brain is way too busy managing the perceived threat to process any vocabulary.
That completely reframes the whole experience for me. It's not that I'm, bad at languages.
No, not at all.
It's that My brain's defense mechanism is overriding my learning mechanism.
Precisely.
It reminds me of stage fright.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. You can be an actor and you can rehearse a monologue 100 times in the absolute safety of your bedroom. You know every single pause, every inflection.
Yeah.
But the second you step on stage, the second that literal spotlight hits you, your mind goes entirely blank. The knowledge is in the filing cabinet, but the drawer is locked by adrenaline.
The spotlight effect is an incredibly potent force, especially in adult learning.
Why adults specifically?
Well, children have a much lower affective filter. They really don't mind sounding silly. They make mistakes all the time.
That's true. They just babble away.
Right. But adults, we have highly developed, complex identities.
Oh, yeah.
We are professionals. We're parents. We're experts in our own fields.
So our egos are involved.
Heavily. The prospect of suddenly sounding like a toddler who doesn't know the word for shoe is deeply, deeply threatening to the ego.
Oh, I hate that feeling.
Right. So by explicitly naming the brain freeze, right on page 1, by normalizing it and saying you are not alone, this text is actively lowering that affective filter.
It's dismantling the wall.
Yes. It's systematically dismantling the wall so the brain can shift from a state of threat response into a state of receptivity.
Okay, so lowering the wall makes total sense, but I do want to challenge the specific tool the text uses to do it.
Okay, let's hear it.
The text triggers this whole discussion by using the question, what do you do every day? I have to ask, is that actually a good icebreaker?
You don't think so?
I mean, if you're at a networking event or a dinner party and someone just locks eyes with you and asks, what do you do every day?
It does sound a bit intense.
It sounds suspiciously like a job interview or an interrogation. It feels incredibly probing.
I see what you mean. It does feel a bit abrupt if we translate it directly into the nuances of like advanced native conversation.
Right.
But we have to look at this through the lens of cognitive scaffolding.
Okay.
A scaffold is a temporary, rigid structure used to build something stable. When you are operating in a new language, ambiguity is your absolute worst enemy.
Because you can't guess what's coming next.
Exactly. You need conversations that are highly, highly predictable. What do you do every day, or what's your typical day like, is universally understood across almost all cultures.
Ah, I see. It doesn't require specialized knowledge of current events. Or an opinion on local politics, or a deep understanding of cultural idioms.
Exactly. It removes the external variables entirely. The topic is simply you.
And that leads us directly into the core thesis of this guide, doesn't it?
Yes, the profound pedagogy of the mundane.
The mundane.
The text makes a relentless case for focusing solely on the daily routine.
It points out we use it every day. We talk to friends, we talk to teachers, we talk at work.
It defines a routine in the simplest possible terms. It says it's your normal day and your habits.
Right. Waking up, eating, working, resting, sleeping.
Notice what it's avoiding there.
It actively avoids asking the learner to describe their dreams or their philosophies or any abstract thoughts.
Yes. Let's talk about the cognitive load of that for a second.
Please.
If you're listening to this right now, think about how much mental energy it takes just to formulate a delicate email to your boss in your native language.
Oh, it takes me 20 minutes sometimes.
Right. You're weighing tone, vocabulary, professional etiquette.
Is this too aggressive? Is this too passive?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now imagine doing that with a vocabulary of only 50 words,
Oh, wow.
while also trying to remember if the verb goes at the end of the sentence.
That's a recipe for a meltdown.
It is. This is exactly what educational psychologists call cognitive load theory.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, our working memory is highly limited. We can only hold a few pieces of novel information in our minds at one time.
Like trying to remember a phone number.
Exactly. When you are speaking a new language, your intrinsic cognitive load is maxed out just trying to nail the pronunciation and retrieve the basic vocabulary.
Just finding the word for cup is taking all your brain power.
Yes. So, if you're also forced to invent a creative story or formulate a nuanced opinion, the extraneous cognitive load becomes overwhelming.
The system crashes.
The system crashes. The brain gets the spinning wheel of death.
By focusing on the completely mundane, predictable actions of a daily routine, the text entirely removes the cognitive load of what to say.
Yes.
The learner already knows exactly what they did that morning. They rely on an existing mental schema.
They only have to focus on how to translate their undeniable physical reality into the new language.
You know, this maps perfectly onto how we learn almost any complex physical skill.
Oh, like what?
Think about learning to cook.
Okay.
If you want to become a proficient chef, You do not start by trying to make a delicate, highly complicated cheese souffle.
Definitely not. That would end in tears.
Exactly. If you mess up a souffle, you have absolutely no idea which of the 50 steps went wrong.
Was it the oven temperature?
Right. The folding technique?
Yeah.
Was there too much humidity in the room? You don't know.
It's too complex.
Instead, you start by mastering scrambled eggs.
Scrambled eggs are the foundational routine of the culinary world.
They are. The ingredients are cheap, familiar, and highly forgiving. If you mess up scrambled eggs, you still have something vaguely edible, and you isolate the variable immediately.
You left it on the heat too long.
Boom! You know exactly what went wrong. In this language text, the phrase, "I wash my face," is the scrambled eggs of conversation.
I love that.
It's so fundamentally simple that you can focus entirely on the mechanics of the language without worrying about the complexity of the content. You are isolating the variable of language from the variable of storytelling.
We see this principle everywhere, really. If you are learning to code, you don't start by writing a highly complex operating system.
Right. You write a 2-line script that prints "Hello World" on the screen.
Shrinking the scope of the problem down to your immediate physical reality is the fastest way to gain traction.
It gives you a foothold.
Exactly. By tying the language strictly to universal biological realities like eating, working, sleeping, the learner isn't floating in an ocean of abstract concepts.
They have solid ground beneath their feet.
They do.
So if the morning routine is our safe, predictable sandbox, how does the text actually go about building the castle?
What do you mean?
Well, because it doesn't just hand you a vocabulary list and wish you luck. It uses a very deliberate, step-by-step methodology, starting from the exact second you open your eyes.
Right.
The strategy here seems to be start simple, add detail.
Yes. It employs a very elegant architectural progression. It relies heavily on sentence expansion.
The source gives this really clear example. You meet a friend, they ask what you do. The text advises, you can start simple. You can say, "I wake up early. This is a good start. Keep it short. Keep it clear."
But then, immediately, it shows you how to upgrade that exact sentence.
Yeah. It says, you can also say, "I wake up at 7 a.m. This gives more information.
The addition of that time marker is a brilliant structural move. The text explicitly tells the learner, time is important. People like to know your time.
I found that line so fascinating. It's almost giving sociological advice alongside the grammar.
It really is.
By adding 7 a.m., it feels like the text is handing the listener a specific peg to hang their next question on. It forces the sentence out of the abstract.
How so?
Well, early means something entirely different to a baker than it does to a bartender.
Oh, that's very true.
7 a.m. is an undeniable fact.
It gives the conversation texture and specificity, which naturally invites a follow-up.
And the text builds on this progressively.
It introduces subsequent actions. I brush my teeth, I wash my face.
But then it introduces the real magic, right?
Sequential markers.
Yes. It shows the learner how to string these isolated beads into a cohesive necklace.
First, I wake up. Then I brush my teeth. After that, I wash my face.
These tiny linking words first. Then, after that, they're the glue that creates a narrative flow without requiring complex grammar.
It builds incredible momentum for the speaker.
It does. But, as I was reading through this morning sequence in the Fresh Light today, I found a specific choice the author made that felt, honestly, counterintuitive.
Oh, what was that?
Right in the middle of this carefully controlled progression, the text starts throwing in variations. It says you can say, "I wake up," but you can also say, "I get up."
Right.
Later, it says, "I have breakfast at 8," but then adds, or "I eat breakfast at 8." It even gives options to specify, "I eat bread and eggs," or "I drink tea."
Yeah.
If we've already established that the learner's working memory is maxed out and their cognitive load is super heavy, doesn't introducing multiple ways to say the exact same thing just threaten to topple the whole structure?
That seems risky.
Why not just pick one verb, like wake up, and stick to it strictly to keep the learner safe?
That tension between simplicity and reality is the tightrope every language educator walks.
It's a tricky balance.
It is, because if a textbook is too simple, it becomes sterile and completely useless in the real world.
Right.
What this text is secretly doing by introducing wake up alongside get up is building receptive fluency.
Okay, wait, I understand expressive fluency. That's what I can actively pull from my brain and speak out loud.
Yes.
But receptive fluency is just about comprehension, right?
Correct. When you are out in the wild interacting with native speakers, you have absolutely zero control over the vocabulary they choose to use.
Oh, none at all. They'll say whatever they want.
Exactly. You might have decided that your safe, well-rehearsed expressive choice is, I wake up, you feel confident about it.
You've practiced it in the mirror.
Right. But tomorrow, a colleague might pass you in the hall and say, hey, what time did you get up today?
And if you've never heard that,
If you've never been exposed to that phrasal verb, that tiny, unexpected variation will cause your affective filter to spike immediately.
panic sets in.
Your brain will register a failure to comprehend. The adrenaline hits, and the conversation just dies.
So the text is anticipating the unpredictability of other human beings.
Yes, it's secretly building a synonym bank.
It's basically whispering to the learner, here is your primary tool, but just so you know, here is a slightly different tool that someone else might use on you.
Exactly. And it introduces these variations within a highly controlled, context-rich environment.
Because you already know we were talking about the morning routine.
Right. Your brain easily infers that get up means essentially the same thing as wake up without feeling overwhelmed by some disconnected list of definitions.
It's padding the walls of the room.
That's a great way to put it.
So when the learner inevitably bumps into have breakfast instead of eat breakfast out in the real world, it doesn't cause a bruise.
Exactly. They just roll with it.
Okay, so the morning is safe. It's predictable, private, and highly controlled. But the second you step out of your front door, that predictability shatters.
Oh, complete.
A day doesn't end at 8 a.m. As the guide moves into the afternoon and evening, it has to map out entirely new environments, specifically the workplace.
Which is incredibly complex.
So how does the text prepare the brain for the chaos of the rest of the day?
It relies heavily on chronology as the ultimate structural support.
The clock.
It uses the clock to prevent the learner from getting lost in the weeds.
Let's trace how the source maps this out. It pushes relentlessly forward.
Yeah, walk us through it.
Work or college starts at 9 a.m. Lunch is at 1 p.m., where you might say, I eat rice and vegetables with my friends. You continue working, and then crucially, I finish work at 5 p.m.
A very important milestone.
Coming home at 6 p.m. to relax and watch TV. Dinner at 8 p.m. with the family. Going to bed at 10 p.m., reading a book or using a phone. It maps the entire 24-hour cycle.
The psychological comfort of relying on time cannot be overstated here.
It's that comforting.
Oh, absolutely. When a person is trying to communicate a story, they often struggle with narrative architecture.
Like how to structure the tale.
Right. How do I organize my thoughts? What comes first? Do I need a climax?
That's a lot of pressure.
It is. But by using the daily routine, the clock provides the narrative arc for you. The sun comes up, the sun goes down.
It's inevitable.
The chronological sequence is hardwired into our biology. The learner doesn't have to invent a structure. They just have to follow the hands on the clock.
It's like having a train track already laid down through a dense forest.
Oh, I like that.
You don't have to hack your way through the brush with a machete to figure out where you're going. You just have to put your train cars of vocabulary onto the tracks and let the momentum carry you.
And the text pays very specific attention to the stations on that track.
What do you mean?
I want to look closely at the transition point it highlights. I finish work at 5 p.m.
Yeah, I noticed that.
The source explicitly notes this is important. People often say when they finish work. So say it clearly.
Why highlight that specific moment? I mean, out of everything you do in a day, why does the text point out that finishing work is the phrase you need to make sure you get right?
Because finishing work represents the universal transition from the public self to the private self.
Wow.
It is a fundamental boundary. Across almost every modern culture, marking the end of the labor period and the beginning of personal autonomy is a deeply shared human experience.
The sigh of relief at 5 p.m. is universal.
Exactly. By giving the learner the tools to clearly express that specific boundary, the text is tapping into a profound rhythm of human empathy.
When you say, I finish work at 5, the person listening instantly understands that feeling.
They feel the release.
Yeah.
They feel the exhaustion. They know what it means to be done for the day. It creates an immediate connection that entirely transcends the language barrier.
But getting to 5 p.m. requires actually talking about the workday itself, which feels like a massive potential minefield to me.
It can be.
When I looked at this chronological map, I noticed how aggressively the text manages complexity when it comes to the workplace.
What do you spot?
When describing the morning, brushing teeth, making tea, it's very specific. But the moment it gets to the office, the text suddenly shifts to incredibly broad, universally applicable verbs.
Right.
It suggests saying things like, I work on a computer, or I talk to my team, or I teach students. It actively prevents the learner from trying to describe their actual job.
This touches on what linguists call ego permeability.
Ego permeability.
Yes. Adults learning a language often experience profound frustration because they have complex, sophisticated professional identities that they suddenly cannot express.
Oh, I can imagine.
Imagine a learner who is a senior logistics coordinator for a multinational supply chain in their native language.
Okay.
They solve incredibly complex, high-stakes problems every single day.
They're a genius at their job.
Exactly. But in English, they only have the vocabulary of a first grader.
Right.
If they try to translate their actual job description, I optimize synergistic supply pathways, they will immediately hit a wall, realize they sound foolish, and their ego will take a massive hit.
They'll freeze. The conversation dies right there at the water cooler.
Yes. The text gives them permission to abstract their complex job into a simple physical reality.
I work on a computer.
Exactly. Or I talk to people. This is not dumbing it down. It is translating the action into the highest common denominator of understanding.
It's a defense mechanism for the ego.
Precisely. It allows the learner to participate in the social ritual of talking about work without requiring a highly specialized, industry-specific glossary that would inevitably cause them to stumble.
It's brilliant expectation management. But, even with the timeline, the train tracks, and the simplified verbs, real life is just messy.
Always.
We all know that even with the best preparation, the spotlight hits you, your brain short circuits, and you inevitably mess up your own timeline.
It's going to happen.
You say the wrong number, or you use the wrong verb. What happens when the train derails?
This brings us to section 5 of the source material. And I genuinely believe this is the most profound pedagogical moment in the entire text.
Really?
Yes. It doesn't pretend that mistakes are avoidable. It actively plans for them.
The art of the polite pivot.
Yes.
The text introduces a highly specific problem scenario. It says, now imagine a small problem. Your friend asks, what do you do in the morning? You say, I wake up at 9, but actually you wake up at 7. You made a mistake.
Notice the tone there.
I love how gentle the framing is. It doesn't say you failed. It just says this can happen.
It creates a simulated failure in a perfectly safe environment.
And then it provides the exact phrasing needed to fix the error in real time.
It gives you the tool.
It tells the learner to say, sorry, I wake up at 7, or even shorter, sorry, not 9, I wake up at 7.
Simple, effective.
And it reinforces this with a core philosophy. It says, making mistakes is okay. You can correct yourself.
I really cannot overstate how radical this is compared to traditional language instruction.
Really? Is it that rare?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
By explicitly scripting a mistake right into the middle of the lesson, the text teaches a vital meta skill,
Which is?
the skill of self-correction. Traditional textbooks present a world of flawless, perfectly constructed dialogues.
Right. Hello, John. How are you today? I'm fine, thank you.
Exactly. Two people meeting at a train station speaking in perfectly conjugated paragraphs. It implies that the goal of learning a language is unbroken grammatical perfection.
But native speakers do not speak perfectly.
Not even close.
If you transcribe a normal conversation between two native speakers, it is full of stutters and false starts and fragmented sentences. We constantly say, wait, no, I meant Tuesday, or actually it was the other guy.
We use what linguists call repair strategies constantly. So by handing the beginner the specific tools to pivot politely, the text actively lowers the stakes of the entire interaction.
It takes the pressure off.
It forces a shift in the learner's internal goal from flawless perfection, which is an impossible and terrifying metric, to effective communication.
Which is inherently messy.
Messy, iterative, and totally achievable. It builds an escape hatch into the language.
I want to dig deeper into a judo analogy here because it feels incredibly apt to me.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
If you walk into a judo dojo or a jiu-jitsu gym on your very first day, the instructor does not teach you how to throw someone over your shoulder.
I would hope not.
Right. Or how to execute a complex armbar. The absolute first thing they teach you is how to fall down.
The break-fall technique.
Yes. They teach you how to hit the mat safely without breaking your collarbone or concussing yourself.
Because you're going to fall a lot.
Exactly. The reality of the sport is that you are going to spend a massive amount of time being thrown to the ground. If you are terrified of the fall, you will be stiff, you will resist the momentum, your muscles will lock up.
And that's when you get hurt.
That is exactly the moment a bone snaps. But once you learn that falling is just a routine part of the process, and you know how to slap the mat to disperse the impact safely, the terror evaporates.
You relax.
You can finally loosen up and start learning the actual techniques of the sport.
That is a brilliant analogy. I mean, is the linguistic equivalent of a judo breakfall.
It really is.
When a learner is terrified of making a grammar mistake, they lock up. Their speech becomes stiff, hesitant, and unnatural.
Or they avoid speaking entirely.
Exactly. But once the fear of the mistake is mitigated by knowing exactly how to recover from it smoothly, the learner can finally relax.
They slap the mat.
They slap the mat. They can engage with the material without that paralyzing dread of hitting the floor.
And once you aren't afraid of the floor, you're ready to actually spar with a partner.
Exactly.
Which brings us beautifully to the final stage of the text's methodology. Once the training wheels are ready to come off and the fear of falling is addressed, the guide moves the learner into a real back-and-forth dialogue.
It's time to look at the feedback loop.
Yes.
The transition from monologue to dialogue is where the theoretical knowledge has to become practical application.
The source text concludes with a simulated paragraph-length conversation. It paints this vivid picture of two people talking. The first person admits they are shy, stating, "I do not know how to talk about my day." The second person acts as a guide, responding, "It is okay. Start simple. Say, I wake up early."
Such a supportive dynamic.
It is. As the first person builds their routine sentence by sentence, this second person responds with constant rhythmic reinforcement. Good. Now say what you do next.
Very good. Now add breakfast.
Perfect. Keep going.
If we look closely at the dynamics of this simulated dialogue, the text is pulling off a brilliant psychological trick.
What's the trick?
It is modeling the role of the encourager. It isn't just teaching the beginner how they should speak. It is providing a blueprint for how a native speaker, or a conversation partner, should behave when interacting with a learner.
Oh, it's subtly training the listener on how to train their friends to be good practice partners.
Exactly. Soviet psychologist Lev Vygotsky developed the theory of the zone of proximal development.
The zone of proximal development. Okay, what does that mean?
The idea is that a learner can achieve much more when guided by a more knowledgeable other who provides just the right amount of scaffolding.
Like spotting someone at the gym.
Perfect comparison. The encourager in this text is demonstrating that exact scaffolding. It shows patience. It demonstrates how to prompt someone without overwhelming them with corrections.
Just a gentle nudge.
Right. It establishes that listening to a beginner is an active, supportive role, not a passive, judgmental one.
But the guide goes one step further. After this simulated dialogue, it provides a massive review list of all the sentences we've covered.
Right.
And then it issues a specific instruction that fundamentally changes the learner's relationship to the material.
This is the crucial step.
It instructs the reader to customize the routine. It says, now think about your own life. Your routine may be different. Maybe you wake up at 6. Maybe you sleep at 11. That is okay. Use your own time. Change the sentences. Make it your own routine.
That instruction is the crucial bridge from extrinsic memorization to intrinsic expression.
How so?
As long as a learner is just repeating, I wake up at 7 because the textbook told them to, they are merely parroting.
It's just an echo.
Right. The language remains external. It belongs to the author of the book. But the second they change that 7 to a 6, because they actually wake up at 6, the language becomes internalized.
It's theirs now.
Yes. It becomes a tool they are actively using to describe their own identity.
They've hacked the textbook to tell their own story.
And that ownership is the spark of true fluency. It shifts the brain from merely recalling data to actively synthesizing reality. It's self-expression.
There is one final piece of advice in this guide that I absolutely love because it speaks to the physical reality of learning.
Let's hear it.
The source urges the learner to embrace repetition. It says, try to speak every day. Even if you are alone, you can speak. You can say, I wake up at 7, I eat breakfast, I go to work. This is good practice. Now, speaking to an empty room sounds a little crazy, but there's profound wisdom there.
It addresses the biomechanics of speech, which is often completely ignored in language learning.
Biomechanics.
Language is not just a cognitive exercise happening in your prefrontal cortex. It is a highly complex physical act.
Right. You are asking the muscles in your jaw, your tongue, your lips, and your vocal cords to coordinate in phonetic patterns they have never produced before.
It's physical training.
When you speak out loud to an empty room, you are building physical muscle memory in your articulatory system.
You are creating entirely new neural pathways from the motor cortex to the mouth. If your mouth knows how to form the specific sounds of English automatically without you having to consciously think about tongue placement,
You free up all that bandwidth.
you free up a massive amount of that cognitive load we talked about earlier.
It's literally putting in reps at the gym. A basketball player shoots free throws alone in an empty gym thousands of times.
Yeah.
They do it so that when there are 10,000 screaming fans in the arena, when the spotlight hits and the effective filter tries to go up, their body simply takes over.
The training kicks in.
The muscle memory bypasses the panic.
The more you speak to the empty room, the more naturally the words will arrive when someone finally asks you, what do you do every day?
We have covered an immense amount of ground today, peeling back the layers of this incredibly unassuming text.
We really have.
Let's synthesize what we've discovered. We started with a source that, on its face, seemed like a basic, almost childlike guide about eating toast and commuting to work.
But by looking at the pedagogy beneath the surface, we've seen a highly sophisticated psychological toolkit.
It uses empathy as a foundational teaching tool.
It normalizes the very real fear of speaking right at the beginning, lowering the affective filter.
It leverages the chronological reality of a single day as a predictable safety net, completely removing the extraneous cognitive burden of trying to be an interesting storyteller.
It protects the adult ego by abstracting complex jobs into simple verbs.
It explicitly teaches the judo breakfall how to survive a mistake politely and keep the conversation alive.
And ultimately, it pushes the learner across the bridge from repeating someone else's sentences to taking ownership of the language for authentic personal expression.
The underlying principles we've discussed today extend far beyond just learning English.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether you are prepping for a high-stakes presentation, learning a new programming language, or trying to master a musical instrument, the path to mastery is really the same.
Start with the absolute undeniable basics.
Ground yourself in the mundane to manage your cognitive load.
And most importantly, learn how to fall down safely, allowing yourself the grace to make polite mistakes.
Before we wrap up this deep dive, sitting here in the quiet of the morning, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought. We've spent this entire time analyzing how to strip a daily routine down to its absolute most basic, simple components so that we can easily communicate it to a stranger.
I wake up, I work, I eat, I use my phone, I sleep.
The bare, unadorned bones of a human day.
Exactly.
But when you are forced to look at your own life through that hyper-simplified lens, when you strip away the nuance, the excuses, the rationalizations, and the perceived busyness, and you are left staring at just the simple reality of your repetitive actions. I work, I eat, I use my phone, I sleep. Does it make you want to rethink how you are actually spending the precious finite hours of your day?
Wow. When the language is stripped of its complexity, the reality of how we spend our time becomes entirely inescapable.
It really does. So whether you're learning a language or just navigating your own routine, keep practicing your breakfalls, be gentle with your mistakes, and take a close look at the simple sentences that make up your day. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.